August 24th, 410 AD. The gates of Rome, the eternal city that had never fallen to foreign enemies in 800 years, swing open from the inside. But here's the shocking truth. They weren't opened by Roman defenders or enemy spies. They were opened by Roman slaves who had become so brutalized by their own empire that they welcomed barbarian invaders as liberators. I'm your host, and what you're about to witness isn't just the fall of a city. It's the ultimate inside job that reveals how Rome destroyed itself from within. This isn't a story of barbarian conquest. It's a story of Roman suicide through stupidity, betrayal, and arrogance so breathtaking it defies belief. Hit subscribe right now, because this tale of self-destruction will change everything you thought you knew about the fall of Rome. But here's what will blow your mind. Alaric didn't want to destroy Rome. He spent years trying to become Roman, serve Rome, and save Rome from itself. Every act of barbarian aggression was actually a desperate attempt by Rome's most loyal ally to force them to honor their agreements and treat him with basic respect. The sack of Rome wasn't barbarian savagery. It was the tragic end result of Roman betrayal, broken promises, and political stupidity that turned their greatest offender into their most dangerous enemy. And the man responsible for this disaster wasn't Alaric. It was a Roman advisor whose name you've never heard, but whose stupidity changed the course of world history. Chapter 1. The making of Rome's greatest ally. Alaric wasn't some savage barbarian plotting in the wilderness. He was everything Rome claimed to want. A Gothic prince who had embraced Roman culture, served in Roman armies, and become one of the empire's most effective military commanders. For over a decade, Alaric fought Rome's enemies with distinction. He commanded Gothic federates, defeated Roman rebels, and proved his loyalty in blood on dozens of battlefields. The Romans didn't just trust him, they depended on him. So here's the question that will haunt this entire story. How does Rome's most loyal barbarian ally become the first foreign enemy to sack Rome in 800 years? The answer reveals a pattern of betrayal so systematic it seems almost deliberate. All Alaric wanted was what any loyal Roman officer deserved: official recognition of his rank, fair payment for his troops, and the respect due to someone who bled for Rome. This wasn't rebellion. This was a faithful servant asking for basic fairness. Rome's response would set in motion a chain of events leading to the unthinkable. Foreign warriors marching through the Forum, looting the palaces, and proving that the eternal city was not eternal after all. Chapter 2. The architect of disaster, STILICHO'S double game. The architect of Rome's destruction wasn't Alaric. It was Stilicho, the regent for young Emperor Honorius, and supposedly the Western Empire's greatest defender. But Stilicho was playing a game so dangerous, it would ultimately destroy everything he claimed to protect. Here's where Roman politics became truly insane. Stilicho made a secret deal with Alaric. He would support Alaric's claims to high command and territory, but in exchange, Alaric would help Stilicho in his power struggles against the Eastern Empire. Think about what this means. Rome's top general was secretly hiring the future destroyer of Rome as a mercenary against other Romans. Stilicho was literally arming and funding the man who would eventually sack Rome. For years, this arrangement worked. Alaric got recognition and resources while Stilicho got a powerful ally against his political enemies. But they were playing with forces neither man could ultimately control. When Stilicho tried to cancel one of Alaric's operations in 407 AD, he left Alaric in an impossible position. Mobilized army, borrowed money, committed troops, and suddenly no campaign to justify any of it. Stilicho's solution was typically Roman: delay, make excuses, and hope the problem disappeared. But Alaric wasn't going to disappear, and what happened next would eliminate the one man who might have prevented the coming disaster. Chapter 3. The execution that doomed Rome. In 408 AD, just when Rome needed Stilicho most to manage the Alaric crisis, court paranoia destroyed the empire's last hope. Stilicho was accused of treason by advisors who hated his power more than they feared Rome's enemies. The accusations were ridiculous. Stilicho, who had spent his life defending the Western Empire, was supposedly planning to put his son on the Eastern throne. The evidence was non-existent, but Emperor Honorius believed it anyway. Stilicho's execution removed the one man who understood Alaric and might have negotiated a peaceful solution. But the real catastrophe was what the same court advisors did next. Led by advisor Olympius, the court decided to solve the Alaric problem through genocide. They ordered the systematic murder of barbarian families living in Roman cities, wives, children, elderly relatives of federates who had served Rome loyally for decades. Tens of thousands of innocent people were slaughtered in coordinated massacres across Roman territories. The message was clear: no matter how loyal, no matter how long you serve, Romans will never accept barbarians as equals. 30,000 barbarian soldiers immediately deserted and joined Alaric. In one stroke of genocidal stupidity, Rome had created the largest barbarian army ever assembled in Italy. Chapter 4. The First Siege. Starvation as a Weapon. When Alaric's massive force appeared outside Rome in 408 AD, the psychological shock was overwhelming. This wasn't supposed to be possible. Rome was eternal, protected by tradition, and secured by 800 years of invincibility. But Alaric didn't assault the walls. He did something more devastating. He understood that Rome's greatest weakness wasn't military but logistical. The Eternal City couldn't feed itself without constant grain shipments. Within weeks, Rome was starving. The population that had once ruled the world was reduced to eating anything they could find. Ancient sources describe cannibalism, leatherballing, and complete social breakdown. Picture the psychological terror. You're a Roman citizen, member of the master race, and you're literally starving, while barbarians control whether you live or die. Everything you believed about Roman superiority is crumbling with your empty stomach. Alaric's demands were shockingly moderate: official recognition, fair payment, and legitimate position within the Roman system. He didn't want to destroy Rome, he wanted to save it by becoming part of it. Rome's response revealed the suicidal arrogance that would doom the empire. They tried to negotiate as if they were still strong, offering insulting payments and refusing real recognition. The betrayal that sealed Rome's fate. In 409 AD, sanity almost prevailed. Alaric had actually reached an agreement with Rome: withdrawal from Italy in exchange for money, grain, and official appointment as commander of Roman forces in the Balkans. This was exactly what both sides needed. Rome's most dangerous enemy would become their defender. His army would protect Roman territory, and the immediate crisis would end. Both sides had signed the agreement. Then came the most catastrophically stupid decision in Roman history. A rival barbarian commander named Sarus attacked one of Alaric's supply convoys, a minor raid that killed a few dozen men and had nothing to do with Alaric. Olympius convinced Emperor Honorius that this attack by Alaric's enemy proved barbarians couldn't be trusted, so Rome should void their treaty with Alaric. Let me repeat that. They punished Alaric for an attack by someone who hated him. Think about this level of stupidity. You make peace with someone, their enemy attacks you, so you blame the person you just made peace with. How does that logic work in any rational universe? When Alaric learned Rome had broken their signed agreement over an incident he had nothing to do with, his patience finally ended. Rome had proved they would never deal with barbarians in good faith. Chapter 5. August 24th, 410. The impossible happens. On the night of August 24th, 410 AD, the impossible happened. The gates of Rome opened, and foreign enemies entered as conquerors for the first time in 800 years. But here's what will blow your mind. The gates weren't opened by barbarian infiltrators or enemy agents. They were opened from inside, by Roman slaves whose families had lived in Rome for generations, but who welcomed invaders as liberators. Think about what this means. The Roman system had become so oppressive that its own people preferred barbarian conquest to Roman rule. The Eternal City was destroyed by its own brutality toward its own citizens. Alaric's sack of Rome was remarkably restrained by ancient standards. Unlike most conquering armies, the Visigoths were Christians who respected churches and protected non-combatants seeking sanctuary. But the psychological impact was devastating. Rome, the center of the world, had fallen. The news shocked people from Britain to Mesopotamia, proving that nothing was permanent and no empire was eternal. The tragic aftermath. The most tragic aspect of the entire story is that Alaric's victory was meaningless. He had sacked Rome, but he still didn't have what he had always wanted: legitimate recognition within the Roman system. Even after demonstrating his power so dramatically, the Roman government refused to grant Alaric the recognition he sought. They still saw him as a barbarian upstart rather than a potential partner. Alaric died just months after his greatest triumph, possibly from fever, ending the last real chance for peaceful barbarian Roman integration. His death marked the moment when cooperation became impossible. Here's what I want you to think about. What if Rome had simply honored their agreements with Alaric from the beginning? What if they had treated their most loyal barbarian ally with basic respect and fairness? Alaric could have been Rome's greatest defender, instead of its most famous destroyer. The sack of 410 AD was completely preventable, caused entirely by Roman arrogance, stupidity, and broken promises. Chapter 6. The real lesson of Rome's fall. The fall of Rome wasn't caused by barbarian military superiority or unstoppable invasions. It was caused by Roman political failure, cultural arrogance, and a systematic betrayal of allies who could have saved the empire. Every step of Alaric's transformation from ally to enemy was preventable. Recognizing his service, honoring agreements, treating barbarian families with basic humanity, negotiating in good faith. Rome chose destruction over cooperation. Rome's greatest strength, their ability to integrate diverse peoples into a unified empire, became their greatest weakness when prejudice and political paranoia made integration impossible. Think about the irony. Rome built the greatest empire in history by including outsiders, then destroyed that empire by excluding the very people who could have saved it. The lesson of Alaric and Rome is eternal. Civilizations that turn their backs on their most loyal allies, while breaking faith with those who serve them faithfully, are doomed to destroy themselves from within. The ultimate tragedy. The sack of Rome in 410 AD stands as history's greatest example of self-inflicted catastrophe. Every element of this disaster was optional, preventable, and caused by choices rather than circumstances. Behind the political failures were human tragedies: families separated by massacre, loyal soldiers betrayed in a leader who wanted nothing more than to belong to the civilization he ultimately had to destroy. Rome's collapse wasn't caused by external pressure, but by internal failure of wisdom, leadership, and basic human decency. They had the resources to succeed, but lacked the wisdom to use them. The sack of 410 AD marked the beginning of the end for the Western Roman Empire, but more importantly, it established the template for how great civilizations destroy themselves through arrogance and betrayal. Final chapter. And there you have it. How Rome's most loyal barbarian ally became the first foreign enemy to sack the Eternal City in 800 years. This wasn't barbarian conquest. This was Roman suicide through systematic betrayal, broken promises, and arrogance so complete it defied rational explanation. Alaric could have been Rome's savior. Instead, Roman stupidity made him their destroyer. What shocked you most about this story? The massacres of barbarian families? The broken treaty over nothing? The slaves opening the gates? Let me know in the comments, and tell me whether you think Alaric was a hero trying to save Rome, or a villain who destroyed it. If you love stories of preventable disasters and historical what-ifs, you absolutely need to subscribe right now. Next week, on revealing Roman war machines so advanced they seem like they came from the future instead of the ancient past. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and remember, sometimes the greatest empires aren't destroyed by their enemies, but by their own failure to recognize who their real friends are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter of history.